Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, good evening, whatever, wherever you are. So thank you for the invitation, and I will talk a little bit about our experience at ETH. So that means 4 years ago, we introduced a new master in landscape architectures. Before, it was only landscape architecture to architects. But what was impressive for us, or what was interesting, what did we learn? So first of all, it wasn't so easy, as you can imagine, to introduce a landscape master in a school of heavy architects. But then when we started, just to give you a bit help, what we did. So we started with 5 seminars, one-day seminars. First day, IT, what is the role of IT? What is the role of natural sciences? What is the role of design? And so on. And I can only talk about 2 topics, and I just mentioned it in the beginning. One was very interesting for me, that the natural scientist, geology, botanist, whatever, told us 30% of the teaching should be in the landscape and not in an auditorium, 1 to 300. So a professor is talking to 300 students and so on. So, but you should go out. You should teach in the landscape. That was, for me, the most impressive. We already did it before, but only, I would say, 5 to 10%. But the natural scientist told us 30%. You have to be in the landscape. And the next really important topic was, so we have many, I agree, I can imagine
Mr. Vogt, we're still seeing the first slide. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. And the second topic, then I will change the slide, was that we should change this system of, let's say, mapping. You all know it, mapping. We should change it, and it's not bad, but we should change to other disciplines, let's say, geography, and then we changed it from mapping to cartography. So I will change it. You can see it? Good. Okay. So these field trips, meaning the real experience and recording, also to kind of create an eco space of the landscape relating to field trips. This was the first topic. Go out, and especially our students don't have real experience with landscape. Therefore, you should go more out, and it's related on one of my professors. You see him on the left side and his wife on the right-hand side. Where does the landscape start? The so-called 0 meter. And it's a very interesting theory, slowly coming into the Anglo-Saxon world. So it means the landscape in front of them, they can describe botanically, but then further away, it's getting more geology and more topography, whatever. And this was an important starting point for us to have this. Lucius Burkhardt wrote a book about strollology, to stroll, and he made it as a science because he was a professor in Germany and they didn't believe that this is science, what he is doing. Then he introduced, of course, it's a bit humoresque, as the science of strollology. And this was, for us, the starting point. And what we did in the beginning, 1 week, just bringing all natural science discipline together. So this is showing Switzerland and the edge Basel. And Basel was for us very interesting, since we have 3 countries, France, Germany, and Switzerland, 3 different geology, 3 different languages, 3 different cultures. And therefore, it was very interesting for us to bring all the students from different countries together to get a common understanding about the cultures there. Because we think that landscape is a cultural production. It's not just a design. And that was for us very interesting to bring together all the students on a similar level. Here you see the 0 meter again of one of my assistants looking. We are standing in Germany, looking to France, and to bring all this discipline on the right-hand side, botany, to bring everything together. So just to show you a little bit, and it's very difficult because I only have 2 topics. I could talk for hours, as you can imagine, about it. How we already did it before this. We started Master in Landscape, this profile of the Alps. So that means we worked mainly in the Alpine regions. This means 7 countries, 5 languages. And then instead of doing mapping, we asked the students to profile the landscape. Here you see an image in Switzerland. In Switzerland, you have to profile if you want to build any building in a landscape or in a city, wherever you want to build, you have to show your neighbors a profile of the building you want to build. And so we did this profile, and it's of course related to what the ETH Studio Basel did. Jacques Herzog, Pierre de Maron, Marcel Meili, and Roger Diener. They just did a portrait of Switzerland and neighborhood countries like France, Germany, Italy. And what is it? You know? So the blue is saying these are touristic resorts, and the red is all the urban development. And it was a base, and the real question was what you see in brown. They didn't include landscape architecture. In the end, Jacques Herzog mentioned we did one mistake. We didn't include you, meaning landscape architecture, landscape, in our profile. And then we said, okay, let's do this profile. And we did it with our students the last 3 years. So in groups, students, so 4 to 5 students, they had to do an analyze, but not mapping. And this is one group, and I just show you what I mean with it's not mapping. I would say to erode and to stabilize, the third one. Erode and stabilize, so we gave some topics, not urban development, landscape protection, and this kind of thing, what you have in mapping. But erode and stabilize, you can use it for civilization, you can use it for geology, and they had to work on this and to decide what does it mean, erosion and stabilization. And not just mapping a specific topic, to keep it somehow more open. And so finally they did it over a valley in Switzerland. And in the end, they had to come together, you know, all these groups, 5 groups, and to discuss, because you cannot say we would do this or that in the landscape, because there are concurrents. Your groups are proposing something different, and then you have to discuss it. What is the real profile? But what is important in our semester program, you saw it, it's it's group work. The analytical work is a group work, but then we want to have individual project. And this is one project from one student, and you see it above, collecting leaves from the field trips, and we want to see everything. We don't want to have a final, as you can see it, sketches, drawings, animations, whatever you have left over from your field trips or whatever. We want to see everything. It's a process, and it's not only the final product. When we discuss it, we want to see all the outcome of your research. And this is an example of a final product. the glacier is melting in Switzerland, and what happens afterwards? We will get 2,000 lakes in Switzerland within the next 50, 60 years. And what was really astonishing for me is that nobody is taking care of this question. Not the architects, not the landscape architects, but a little bit the artists. But and this was a proposal by students proposing a dam, and this dam is not for hydropower, it's for drinking water, because he was saying, you know, the real problem is not energy, the real problem is water. And then you can discuss it. And finally, we always do a newspaper, not a book, because students' work are very actual from today, or let's say 2 weeks or from now. But then we produce a newspaper, and we show it in the region where we worked, in this landscape where we worked in the south of Switzerland, and we distribute it in the public, and not as a book, because the book is for people like all of you, and it's not really interesting. It's really interesting to bring the outcome in a public discussion. And what we always do, the problem is always that we are open the field. I mean, landscape architecture is such a complex discipline. So in this case, we worked with a hydrologist and a botanist. And we always decide before the semester which expert do we need from outside. It's not just an assistant or so, but a real specialist. And the student have access. They can always ask the specialist if they have a specific question. We found out it's very difficult. I don't know how it is on your side. I was hired at the ETH, and then I asked the architects, but why? What do you expect from me? But finally, and then they said, yeah, interdisciplinary work, but it never happened. So therefore, because they are all fools, the botanists, the hydrologists, the geologists, so on. So we invited specific experts to our semester, and this was much more interesting, and at least they had the time to work with us and our students. And so we break the rule that it has to be from the university. We asked specialists from outside, and it was very interesting, a bit for the students, simulating a real process when they are working in an office. And I think this interdisciplinary work is very important, but it's not so easy to establish it. So I show you another, we have many, I cannot show all our teaching frames, but one was related to my professor, I already mentioned, Lucius Burkhardt, and I did it 3-4 times outside the ETH and sometimes inside. So I can imagine you have the same setting, so that you have 4 weeks, a semester, and the students are working on it. But then sometimes I had the feeling I should break. So we have the so-called seminar weeks where all students can apply what any professor is. So I proposed, for instance, craftsmanship in northern Italy, or whatever you propose. It's completely open to every student. But then I thought we should have this break in the semester. And this was one, and I did it 3 times myself, but not at the ETH, outside, within 4 days. That means the first day, semiotic, second day, perception, third day, you have to present, to do a presentation, model, drawings, whatever. And then fourth day, communication, let's say. And you can do it within 4 days, and you have to give it open. You can draw by hand, can do it with computer, whatever you do, but you only have 4 times. 4 days. And this break in a semester was extremely successful. So then we did another one, and again, I cannot show it. It had several formats. I found out that the students don't have this ability to work with the hand. So we introduced a summer school. I have to say, super successful. The students were really interested in. So we asked them, how can you position a seating place in the landscape? So two questions. First of all, you have to design somehow seating, and you have to position it in the landscape. In this case, it was in a transformation area in Basel, transformation of an industrial area into a housing area. And they had 2 days, 2 weeks, sorry, two weeks to do it. So first of all, to design it, to build it, and to position it somewhere where they found it. It's really specific. Why would I like to sit there? And we worked on site. And so that means they were extremely restricted. They didn't have all the machines. They have at the university to build their models. It was extremely restricted, let's say, to their hand. So they could only use simple tools. And we gave them a budget, a very small budget. So finally, they had to use recycled material. In this case, these were former facade materials. It can't be expensive. You have to do reuse and then to adapt it to your question, design question, and the position in the landscape. And then how it looks like, this is really reuse of facade materials. And then the students even started a new company to give the cutting to other students, and then they can build it themselves. And they did a stool, a bench, a table, and so on. And this was within 2 weeks. And it was used in this temporary urban situation. So then another one, since we are in Iran, what is really important is to give the students, we found out they have to criticize themselves. And we had a course, so it's sorry if I don't spell it in the right way. It's a pyridesa, and you see a very small drawing. So you see the rivers and a garden and the fence. And so we gave this to the students as a pyridesa means a kind of I could talk now about hours about it. It's a kind of paradise. But what does it mean? Because many people expect from us doing landscape architecture, expect that we show paradise. But what are the rules of paradise? So boundary, entrance, metaphor, water, choreography, planting. And then the students should learn to criticize themselves before we do a final critique. And this was the reason that we gave them this idea of pyridesa, and it worked quite well, so they could really criticize themselves. And then, of course, we had to learn, so again, it's about the territory of the city. We did several projects in Copenhagen, in Lisbon, Naples, and so on. And to really learn to work in a bigger scale, because architects, especially in Zurich, they are treated to understand the parcel where they build a building, and there are some trees around. And we explained them, yeah, you have to learn the context and in a larger scale. And so we did it in several cities in Europe. And And it was very interesting that this, for instance, I can show you one example, it's Naples. That's, and then we relate it to mapping. So to understand, you see this a volcano in the middle, to do an analysis of the whole metropolitan area and not only a specific site where to build something or to build a park, whatever. They really had to analyze a whole region. So, and this was important for us. Again, I'm not against mapping, but in this case, for instance, mapping is very interesting. So we did it for Naples, and then they had to understand the whole territory, the landscape around Naples, and then to find out what is important. And the last one, urban food. You see this famous painting. On the left-hand side, it's Siena. On the right-hand side, the landscape around Siena, where we ask the students, how do you feed a city? I mean, food production, urban food, urban farming, urban gardening, but not to do a design, but just to understand what it means in relation to landscape in different cities again. And the most interesting was, by the way, Venice, but we did it in Lyon, Torino, Milan, Vienna, and so on. And this is... And again, we changed the tools. And in this case, we always wanted to have finally first an analyze, and in the end, an essay film. So they had to show us a film about their project. And I cannot show more. It's a whole film, but it was 5 minutes.
Das Angebot in den Supermärkten heutzutage ist enorm. Alle Regale sind immer prall gefüllt und unzählige Varianten und verschiedenste Produkte sind fast zu jeder Zeit verfügbar. Es gibt nicht nur ein Wasser, sondern 20.
So that means this film was about production and the relation between the landscape where the products are coming into the city, the distribution, the food itself, the restaurant, and the recycling, the whole chain of food production, starting with the landscape, ending with recycling. And in this case, industrial production, industrial distribution versus street market and so on. But now I'm finished. I could talk for hours because I couldn't even show everything, but to finalize what I found really interesting in the last years was this: go out with your students 30% of your time and change your analyze process. That was what I learned the last 5-6 years. Thank you.
Mr. Vogt, thank you for your contribution.